the great Graham drumline and color guard. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Rainbow Push. Ladies and gentlemen, again, put your hands together for the Great Graham Drumline and Color Guard from the Great Graham Training Center High School, located in the South Loop. Would everyone please at this time, we need everyone. Would you please stand at this time? Quietly. Please, at this time, we will be led in the Negro National Anthem by baritone Michael Harper. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Please keep that applause going as our drum line leaves the stage. Thank you so very much, young people. You are dynamic. They are under the direction of Angela Buckner, Sherman Holman, and Elisha Brown. Again, come on, we can do that. Let's celebrate our young people as they leave the stage. Thank you so very much. You may be seated. Again, if you're looking for your table, we have a young man in the back. Mr. Adams has our table schematics to help clear that up. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our MC for the first half of our program from NBC5 Chicago, the host of the Chicago Today, Miss Courtney Hall.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction, and round of applause for the drum line. My name is Courtney Hall, and I am the host of NBC5's brand new show called Chicago Today. You can catch it at 11:30 on Fridays right now if you want to give it a chance. But this morning, I am so very proud to be here as one of the co-MCs of the 30th annual Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Breakfast. I've got to tell you, I love the energy in this room. This is the perfect way to start today. We pay homage to the life and legacy of Dr. King, and we join the Push XL team in encouraging excellence in our communities, especially among our young people. First up in the program, we'll hear from Ms. Cheryl Grace, Senior Vice President of Consumer Engagement at Nielsen. And then, to continue adding to the warmth and loving spirit of this space this morning, we'll receive blessings from a group of spiritual guides in prayers and blessings in unity. Reverend Gail Rice, Associate Pastor of Freedom Baptist Church in Hillside, will be joining us. Imam Abdullah Madyon, Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition, and Reverend Reginald W. Sharp, Jr., who is the senior pastor and Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church in Chicago, will all be joining us in prayer. Now, after they provide our spiritual sustenance this morning, we'll get into some actual physical sustenance. We're going to feed you with a hearty breakfast and then get into the rest of today's program. But first, please help me welcome Ms. Cheryl Grace from Nielsen.
Good morning, Push family. Oh, come on, you all can do better than that. It's a new year, come on. Good morning. Thank you. So as she said, I'm Cheryl Grace, and I'm with Nielsen, and we're the company that measures what you buy, what you watch, and what you listen to. Shh. And every year we produce a report for African American consumers. 2019, the name of the report was It's in the Bag, African Americans' Path to Purchase. And so in that light, I'd like to ask you a few quiz questions. Are you ready? Are you game? Yes? Yes. Okay. What does bottled water, Saks Fifth Avenue, Instagram, Glory Greens, Queen Sugar, and Empire have in common? Anybody? Okay, they're all favorites of African American consumers. Now, for a group of people who think of ourselves often as impoverished, we have pledged the allegiance to literally thousands of brands who actually were making manufacturers and producers very, very wealthy. Y'all can't hear me out there if you're talking. But truth be told, Black power is our ability to actually recognize our Black power. So we're going to define Black power this morning in terms of consumerism, okay? To help me make this an example that you can relate to on today, think back, and how many of you are familiar with the Montgomery bus boycott of 1955? Anybody? Okay. So during that boycott, the Montgomery Bus Company took for granted the power of its African American riders until those same said riders stopped using public transportation and literally crippled the company, right? Well, here in 2020, we have that same power with brands. You don't believe me? Think of the fact that we spent $19 million last year on Quaker Oats Quick Grits. Quick Grits. Now, that's not to be confused with Original Grits, where we spent $2.6 million. That's consumer power. We spend $830 million every year, you guys, on dish detergent. Dish detergent. And a whopping $1 billion on juices that you keep on the shelf, as well as another $578 million of refrigerated juices. And that's just the African American spend. So we actually choose the brands that we want to support with our dollars and our wallets every day. So say it with me, that's power. And Alice Walker said the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. And I'm here to tell you on this Martin Luther the King holiday that Dr. King would want you to be just a bit more cognizant about the modern day Montgomery bus companies who are taking your consumer choices and habits for granted. The companies who think they don't need you until they don't have you as customers anymore. And I encourage you this morning to move from a state of unconscious bias to being fully conscious and aware on where and with whom you're spending your $1.3 trillion of annual buying power, because it matters. Thank you. Enjoy your holiday.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, for those words. I'd now like to start with our prayer and invite up Reverend Gail Rice, Associate Pastor from Freedom Baptist Church in Hillside. Inviting up Reverend Gail Rice from Freedom Baptist Church in Hillside. Your lights are on your car. Here she comes.
Could I have your attention, please? Everyone stop moving. Still your voices, still your walking. Shh. We want to make sure that every part of this program is, you're allowed to hear it, enjoy it, and to receive all of the people that have made great preparation for you to celebrate and commemorate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. If you have your table number, please take your seats at this time. Shall we bow our heads? Our Father and our God, we pause at this moment to say thank you. Thank you for how you have blessed us through many challenges that we faced as a people. Thank you for how you have brought us from our Middle Passage challenges through our slave challenges, being sold on Wall Street. Thank you for how you have blessed us with the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to face the challenges and meet the challenges of Jim Crow and lynching across the South and even in the North and the Midwest. God, we want to say thank you for bringing us to this moment in history, to this place in history where we now have public accommodations, where we enjoy some freedoms and yet we still struggle for equality. Thank you for the struggle for voting rights enforcement, and thank you for those who continue to lead this fight. We thank you for the life and work and service of Reverend Jesse Jackson and all of the board members and those who have gone beyond this life, having fought tirelessly for the freedoms we enjoy today. And so, God, we ask that you will bless this food, bless this program, bless those who prepared the food, bless those of us who will receive it. Remind us of those who are wandering the streets of Chicago today, more than 20,000 students who have no place to stay, several families riding the L as a place, a homeless shelter, those who are behind prison bars merely awaiting trial in pretrial detention places. God, give us a vision and the will to work for the farmers in Pembroke. We ask these things knowing that you are God that can do anything but fail. Bless those who gathered, inspire us, energize us as we prepare to listen and receive information and challenges for our next destination. We ask these things in your precious Son, Jesus' name. Let every heart say, amen.
Thank you, Reverend Wilson, for starting us off. I'd now like to invite Imam Abdullah Madyon from the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition. Imam Abdullah Madyon from the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition. Are you out there? All right, we're going to invite up Reverend Reginald W. Sharp, Jr., the senior pastor of Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church in Chicago.
Good morning. What an honor it is to be here before you today. I bring you greetings from the Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, where our founder is the late, great Reverend Clay Evans. And I believe that this is an appropriate time to thank God for the way he used Reverend Evans in the civil rights movement. Help me thank God for the memory and the legacy and the life of Reverend Clay Evans. His connection to Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson allowed Reverend Jackson to found and to birth the push movement out of the basement of Fellowship Church. So every time we walk into the walls, into the rooms of Fellowship, I feel liberation in every room. I feel freedom in every room. And so at this time, I invite you to center yourselves, close your eyes as we go to God in prayer yet again. Let us pray. Gracious God, would you reignite within us the flame of freedom? Reignite within us the flame of justice. Reignite within us the flame of righteousness. And God, as we work to continue to make this world the beloved community that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed about, we delight in the fact that we know that your power, your grace, your strength, your courage fills every heart and every muscle in this room. We're glad, oh God, that if it's dark, you can light it. If it's broken, you can fix it. If it's hard, you can solve it. If it's heavy, you can lift it. If it's sick, you can heal it. If it's crazy, you can calm it. If it's sinking, you can save it. If it's falling, you can catch it. If it's messy, you can handle it. If it's dirty, you can clean it. If it's sin, you can wash it. If it's a trap, you can break it. If it's ratchet, you can restore it. If it's an addiction, you can conquer it. If it's a battle, you can fight it. If it's a storm, you can use it. If it's water, you can walk on it. If it's fire, you can get in it. If it's pain, you can ease it. If it's closed, you can open it. If it's lost, you can find it. If it's trouble, you can flip it. If it's a lie, you can kill it. If it's a rumor, you can end it. If it's bad, you can change it. If it's Trump, you can deal with it. And if it's dead, you can raise it. Move in this city, move in our country. And we seal this prayer in the name of the one who's still able to turn water into wine. And let all of God's people say, Ashe and amen.
Reverend Sharp, thank you, and welcome to Chicago. Thank you very much. And thanks to Reverend Wilson as well. Wow, now I think we are ready to eat. Breakfast will be served. And as it's served, I will invite up Push XL President Dr. Julianne Melvo. She's got some insight to share about a video we're going to see a little bit later, but enjoy.
Are you ready to praise the Lord today? Are you ready to praise the Lord with Chosen today? Then put your hands together and join us as we celebrate our gospel roots and sing this old school medley that starts with, what a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms.
Good morning, all. I know that you're still eating. I hope that everybody has been served. I'm just going to take a few minutes. I know everybody has not been served. I see some plates. Just to take a couple of minutes of your time to welcome you on behalf of Push for Excellence. We're just delighted that you could come today as we come together every year. We're grateful for your support. And I know that you're still talking, but I wish a couple of y'all would listen to me. Let me get a quiet place. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need everyone to take a seat at this moment. I know you're networking, and I know several of you are passing cards. If you would just sit down right now, that would help us as we move the program forward. We want to be able to get out in the same day.
There's no danger of us being here till tomorrow.
Shh. The servers will continue to serve if you will take your seats. Thank you so very much.
Okay, let's try again. Take two. Good morning. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you again for coming, as you always do, to support not only Push, but our young people, because this is really about our young people. I don't think we should ever forget that Dr. King took Reverend Jackson under his wing. Reverend Jackson was in his early 20s. The question I would ask each and every one of you is, who have you taken under your wing? So many of our young people do not have mentors or sponsors or people who are helping them navigate the corporate world or the higher education world or any other world. And so we need you to rededicate yourself here to supporting young people. We say each one can teach one or help one, and I'd like everybody to remember that. And then, of course, we come together today. As we come together, we see our country in such a bifurcated space. We see Wall Street doing very well and increasing numbers of poor people doing poorly. We just kicked about 700,000 people off food stamps. So there are more and more people who are hungry, but apparently we have everything that we need. There's so many contradictions, including the rollback that is being taken place by that man. I'm not going to cuss in front of you, so I'll just call him that man. But in any case, we see rollbacks in terms of environmental protections, in terms of civil rights protections, in terms of voting rights protections, and all of that. So people say you got to stay woke, but it's not that you woke, it's what you do when you get out of bed. In other words, there's so much work for us to do. And of course, we stand on a strong foundation. One of the key things that Dr. King always said is that everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know the theory of thermonuclear dynamics to serve. All you need is a heart full of grace and a soul filled with love. And now that heart full of grace and soul filled with love is the foundation for the work we do at Push for Excellence. And so Reverend Jeanette Wilson, our executive director, took the time to ask y'all just to lower your voice a little bit because we have a video that we know you're gonna love. It essentially shows us not only what our origins are in terms of Push Excel, but also the work that we do. So we really need your full attention for about 10 minutes, 9, 8, but a few minutes to pay attention to this and then to think about what you can do to help us continue to invest in our young people. Would we roll the video now?
Yes, Jesus, I want to be on your right or your left side. Not for any selfish reason. I want to be on your right or your left side, not in terms of some political kingdom or ambition, but I just want to be there in love and in justice and in truth and in commitment to others so that we can make of this old world a new world. You must have, as a basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence.
Dr. King's message that one must seek to achieve excellence in various fields of endeavors resonated with Reverend Jesse Jackson throughout his own journey. His only tool was excellence, and excellence mattered.
In our struggle for dignity, we've always known that strong minds break strong chains. 243 years of slavery was illegal to get any education, just illegal to learn to read or write. Another 100 years of legal Jim Crow, illegal to get more than a second-class education. Too many students, not enough books, second-class education. We kept fighting. Now we're fighting for access to education, first-class education. We must have a first-class attitude and a first-class commitment.
Reverend Jesse Jackson planted a seed of excellence in one student that just needed the belief and opportunity that she could change the world.
I heard Jesse Jackson speak when I was a kid, saying that excellence is the best deterrent to racism. Excellence is the best deterrent to sexism. And so I went home and I put that on my mirror, and that really became my motto.
In 1975, as Reverend Jackson was driving through the south side of Chicago, he saw in the distance a new public school named after his friend and mentor, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His heart sank as he got closer to the building when he saw a group of boys shooting dice and girls smoking nearby.
We did not fight this fight for this kind of surrender to ignorance to the culture. We must stand up and fight back.
Jackson could not get the students off his mind. He needed to do something. They needed access, resources, and opportunities. And thus, Push for Excellence was born. Founded by Reverend and Mrs. Jesse Jackson Sr. and Mrs. Lucille Lamont, and a number of nationally recognized educators, including Dr. Mary Frances Berry, Dr. Elma Martis, Dr. John Hope Franklin, Dr. Frank Hale, Dr. Camille Cosby, and Dr. Alvin Poussaint, to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal family and community challenges that they may experience.
I am somebody. Excel. Right on.
The Parent-Student-Teacher Engagement. This initiative is a national program which parents, students, and teachers at all educational levels together as partners in a child's educational process. This movement is designed to motivate parents, students, teachers, and school administrators, stakeholders, to form a partnership to push for excellence in education.
It's designed to help our children and to involve every stakeholder in education to make sure that every child has access to a high-quality public education and that every child is pushed from cradle to career effectively with the support of the business community.
My name is Chidi Osakwe.
Dominique Davis.
Julian Jones.
China Mazums.
Miles Chervin.
Jalen Clark.
Marcus Anderson.
Jaden Reed.
Kari Young. It's Megan Chu, and I'm a Cirillo McSween Scholar.
And I major in music industry.
Sophomore majoring in bioengineering at Stanford University.
And I'm a freshman at Cornell University studying electrical and computer engineering.
I'm a sophomore mathematics major at Spelman College.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Reverend Jesse Jackson for all his support of my college education.
Thank you for Olive Toyota for helping with Reverend Jackson with the scholarship as well.
I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you to Reverend Jesse Jackson for helping to make the scholarship opportunity possible for me.
As appreciative as I was before, I'm even more grateful now having received this scholarship.
Not only has it helped me out financially with paying for tuition, but it has also awarded me the opportunity to learn more about the Rainbow Push Coalition and their different initiatives in the African American community.
Since 1990, Push Excel has awarded more than $7 million to hundreds of students enrolled in colleges and universities across the country. Our scholars attend a variety of institutions, and we take pride in the fact that 90% graduate. This year, we are excited to announce a new $20,000 scholarship, the Airmark Trade Scholarship for students attending Chicago public schools.
I feel good about going on an HBCU college tour. It's a great opportunity to meet new people and learn about the different colleges.
Every spring, Push Excel takes high school students on a tour into their future.
My name is Yakendra. I go to Gary Common. I'm a sophomore. I want to go to Howard and I want to major in business.
The HBCU tour includes cultural activities. This past year, students were able to walk the sacred grounds of the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama. A life-changing experience.
Going on this tour literally changed my whole trajectory. So now I'm pretty sure I want to go to HBCU.
We are engaged in providing services and education to our young people. Push Excel is exactly what it says. We're pushing young people to excellence.
The Push Excel Inspirational Speech Oratorical program is world-renowned and has been designed to help young people focus on the power of eloquent, persuasive speech by instilling strong moral ideals in excellence, education, and sound communication skills.
I will recite for you excerpts from A House Divided by Abraham Lincoln.
In a Lincoln bicentennial celebration, where a portrait of President Abraham Lincoln was unveiled by Illinois Judicial Council, several of our students spoke and delivered the Emancipation Proclamation. As a Whitney Young High senior, Rebecca Reed was selected to meet and greet former First Lady Michelle Obama and has followed in her footsteps by being accepted into Yale. Nelson Simmons has become a sought-after actor as a result of participating in the Oratorical Society.
I don't think that I would have had the courage and the confidence for when I was auditioning for my agent to speak in front of those people if I hadn't done Operation Push.
He was featured in a production of The Watsons Go to Birmingham and in The Christmas Carol, and is giving back. This is why we do it. Look what he did with his earnings.
Push has just really helped me out, so I just
a part of what they've given to me and for what all they've done for me.
The Push Excel STEM curriculum is provided in partnership with local technology partners who engage students in a number of technical areas, including introduction to HTML, creating web pages, app design, coding, and creating video games.
I have learned to code, build, and design robots. Both learned how to work better in a team.
Let's be a good sport. Students enrolled in team building, fitness, and nutrition classes to learn the business of sports. Students look forward to tournaments to showcase skills and to compete at the highest levels with top coaches from around the city. Sports figures join students to discuss how to balance sports with education and instruct students about the life after sports.
We're grateful for the wins thus far, and we look forward to continuing to fight back and continuing to win.
One of the things I know Reverend believes in helping these young people, and they get excited about it. And so as we continue to grow Push Excel, we'll continue to help more students, become better.
What Push Excel does is give the children the opportunity to develop those abilities, to feel proud about what they could do, to feel proud about who they are, and to have successes that they may not otherwise have had.
Push Excel. No more impossible dreams.
All right, next up, I'd like to introduce the national spokesman for the Rainbow Push Coalition, Mr. Jonathan Jackson.
Good morning and a happy Reverend Martin Luther King Holy Day. I'd like to share with you just briefly about some background information on how this day came to be. We've been celebrating the birth and the life of Reverend Martin Luther King for 51 years here at the Rainbow Push Coalition. It was Mr. John Conyers, Representative Conyers, that had the idea that the highest honor anyone could achieve in a nation's history is to have a national holiday. 4 days after the Reverend Martin Luther King was assassinated, the legislation went into place for a Reverend Martin Luther King national holiday. It took 15 years from 1968 until 1983, when it was officially signed, until 1986, by which time the federal government implemented the Reverend Martin Luther King national holiday. My father and my mother, Reverend Jesse Jackson and Mrs. Jacqueline Jackson, we took many pilgrimages, if you would, to Washington, D.C., when it was seemingly a hopeless cause and it was dead end. But there was a gentleman who put our soul to the science and the passion, a musician, Mr. Stephen Morris, affectionately known as Stevie Wonder, that said, "Happy birthday to you." The artist contributed to this movement. But we were confused about whether or not we should go to school, go to work, how best to honor the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., because the banks were open. My father had the idea, following up on the work of the Reverend Martin Luther King to expand economic justice. He started the Rainbow Push Wall Street Project to open up closed doors and to bring diversity and inclusion to the markets. Out of that came the first African American to have a $1 billion lead managing underwriting for AT&T properties, and on and on. But I told my father the markets are open and people don't know if they should come. He says, "Why are the markets open?" I said, "I don't know. That's why the banks are open." The New York Stock Exchange on average does $30 trillion in trading volume, does $170 billion in trading volume annually, daily, and $30 trillion of values of stocks are registered on the exchange. We were at 11 Wall Street with then Chairman Sanford Weill, the nation's largest banker in the world. And we were with Mr. Dick Grosso, the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. My father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, at 11 Wall Street, asked Chairman Grosso, why are the markets opened? Chairman Grosso said, Reverend Jackson, I don't know why. We've never thought about it. He says, we are a private member organization. Let me poll the membership and I will get back to you. 24 hours later, Chairman Dick Grosso, the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange, says, Reverend Jesse Jackson, it has been voted unanimously, the markets will be closed for the name of the Reverend Martin Luther King holiday. So for one of the descendants of slavery to now be immortalized, where the markets around the world take a moment to pause, I would ask that you take a moment to commemorate the life of the Reverend Martin Luther King, 39 years of age, assassinated, fighting against poverty, fighting against anti-war, wanting voting rights expanded to all, and more humane priorities at home. Dad, I thank you for that work, and I had to share that story. But in that tradition, we are blessed here in the city of Chicago to have a leader who uses the word unapologetically poverty, who is committed to fighting intergenerational poverty. I know some people don't know what poverty looks like anymore, but if you're paying too much for your mortgage and you have predator lenders, you're going into poverty. If you are paying too much in insurance, you're going into poverty. If you're getting stuck with fines and fees in the city of Chicago, you're going into poverty. We've paid the most in camera light fees of any municipality in the nation. We've led the nation in bankruptcy. But this woman, this mayor, this powerful public servant has eliminated those ridiculous fees so that we can stop being the bankrupt capital of the United States. She's attacking the core, the roots of poverty. I've seen the Reverend Martin Luther King holiday, holy day, get turned upside down, inside out. We need all personal salvation, but Reverend Martin Luther King died for social salvation. This is a day where we come together collectively for the big picture. You should be kind to your neighbor every day. You should cut your grass every day. You should pick up garbage in your neighborhood every day. You should be charitable every day. But this is the day that we want to focus on the structures that are creating poverty and eliminating them in the spirit of the Reverend Martin Luther King. This young lady, she's keenly articulate, persuasively analytical, and she is a warrior and a fighter. It is my pleasure to introduce the mayor of the city of Chicago, Miss Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, everyone, for being here, excuse me, and supporting the great work of Rainbow Push, and particularly Push Excel. As you saw from the video, the legacy of the work of Dr. Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and the work of Push Excel lives on in the lives of so many young people who have been touched and benefited from events like this. I want to thank Reverend Jackson for his leadership over these many decades in constantly being where we need to be as a society and pushing us to think about our neighbors, not just here in Chicago or the United States, but abroad, and making sure that we all understand the humanity and commonality that each of us shares. His legacy will always live on, not just through his many works, but from the lives of countless numbers of people that touch. So, Reverend Jackson, thank you so much for being our leader. And I also want to give a hearty congratulations to this year's scholarship recipients. And I want to challenge you to make sure that you take the talent and the work that you will endure, and make sure that you give it back to someone else in your family, someone else in your community. When we are fortunate enough to receive a gift of scholarship, it means that we have an obligation not only to live up to the people whose expectations are embedded in every single dollar, but to make sure that we live a life of purpose so that we can be an example and giving back. So I challenge this year's recipients to think about that as they move on in their journey. As you saw earlier in the program, each of these remarkable individuals shine because of their own talent and reflect the range of talent brimming here, right here in Chicago. Education's vital importance needs no explanation, particularly in historically oppressed communities. But in the discussion about education, whether here at this breakfast or across Chicago, there is one aspect that bears remembering as we come together to honor Dr. King's legacy. One quote, I think, that doesn't get a lot of publicity, but I think really summarizes his philosophy. He said, quote, "The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically." Dr. King, who said these words, wasn't the civil rights icon that we came to know. He was not yet the anti-poverty leader we know so well today. But he said these words when he was a young student at Morehouse College in 1947. And his point was clear. Education cannot end with what we know. It must also include knowing who we are. As Dr. King said, intelligence alone is not sufficient. It must include character. These were prescient words for both the man Dr. King became and the opposition he would face throughout his life. Opposition that would be driven by many individuals who cited their own education to mask their discrimination. I'm proud to say that when it comes to education, here in this city, we are experiencing historic positive change. With our students graduating high school and going on to college and earning scholarships at record levels. The same can be said for our elementary students who are setting their own records in outcome achievements. Meanwhile, we are seeing tremendous success in our city colleges through unprecedented expansion in access and work partnerships with our universities and city businesses, many of whom are represented in this room today. Clearing the path for every young person in Chicago to get a good education and a good job is a top priority and should be for all of us. Ensuring no one will ever have to worry about an obstacle getting in the way of their talent and dreams. Yet as exciting as these accomplishments are, we will fall short as a city if we don't provide the environment and resources for our students' moral education as well. We must foster character in addition to intelligence. And I just also want to pick up on one thread that Jonathan mentioned. While it is great that we are providing scholarship opportunities to these young people who clearly have taken advantage of opportunities that are around them and just need our support to ignite them and be catalytic in their futures. There are many young people who are never going to see the inside of a room like this. They are not positioned yet to take advantage of opportunities that might be there. And that is because of the grip of intergenerational poverty. My commitment to this city this year and in every year that I am mayor is to make sure that we step forward in a bold way and tackle the challenge, but the necessary challenge of intergenerational poverty. When we think about people in this city who have never seen a community that has less than 25% unemployment, who everyone that they know relies upon government assistance for their daily bread, and where families are literally struggling every single day to determine which bill they can pay, whether or not they'll be able to eat, whether or not their children will have clothes and shelter. In this city, with our wealth, that is a shameful thing that we must come to terms with and we must do something about. And yes, it is hard, and it will not be overcome in a day's time or year's time, but we must lay the foundation for fundamental change in the way in which we take care of each other as neighbors. And Jonathan mentioned some of the things that we have started: fines and fees reform, making sure that we have better access to health care, that we give our children real opportunity. But as long as those horrible metrics remain, as long as we keep seeing crimes of poverty manifest in gun violence every single day, our work is not done. And I need your help and I need your commitment to make sure that we turn the tide as a city and that we become a model for the nation on how, in this time, in the legacy of Dr. King, that we have said enough with the poverty, enough that robs people and children and families of communities of their dreams and their hopes and their aspirations, that we as a city will turn in a different direction and make sure that we leave no one behind because of their race, their gender, or zip code. That is what we must do to make real the legacy of Dr. King. And we will have more to say about this in the coming days, but understand that this will be a primary focus of my time in office. I want to make sure that there is no child that is left behind, that we are not hungry day after day, that people are not living in mortal dread of what's coming in the mailbox, the knock on the door, the ring of the phone. We are better than this in Chicago, and we will be better. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor Lightfoot. Oh, this is the first where I have to raise the mic. Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, for those remarks. I'd like to welcome next up Dr. Malveaux back to the stage for some more remarks on the work of PushXL. Dr. Malveaux? All right, we're going to move ahead with the program. And I'd like to, at this point, turn things over to one of my friends, Terrell Brown, who's going to come up and help me introduce our next up, the winners of the PushXL Oratorical competition.
Yeah. We'll figure this thing out together, Courtney. We'll work together and we'll tag team it. So we got some of the kids over here. Guys, come on up, and we want to hear from you. These are our young people. Everybody give them a hand as they make their way up to the stage.
They're going to liven things up a bit for us.
Bradley, Gabe, Nelson, Faith, Leilani, Carly, Essence, and Christiana all coming up here. And guys, the stage belongs to you. We're going to get out of the way.
say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day that this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the contents of their character. Oh, I have a dream today. With this faith, we'll be able to work, pray, struggle, go to jail together, and to stand up for freedom together. Know that we'll be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet lands of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. So let freedom ring. When we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring, from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we'll be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, the Jews and Gentiles, the Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty that we are free at last.
Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a prophet who shed light on the enduring and urgent tensions between white and black America over race and class. He was a prophet who led the nation out of the darkness of Jim Crow. His promised land was conjured on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963, where his 4 little children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the contents of their character. He knew our country was embarking on a long twilight struggle against poverty and violence. We've got some difficult days ahead, he preached the night before he died.
His impact, his legacy, and mission remains alive today and will far surpass the span of any lifetime. In fact, I am certain he intended his work to live beyond him, and certainly he knew his great civil and human rights projects would take much more than 1 generation to be realized. In this respect, they live within all of those who are willing to continue working where he left off.
In 52 years since his death, it would seem, he'd have comments on the state of his dream. What would Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say if he were present and alive today? There would be many issues to address: economics, education, and yes, the moral status of our nation, healthcare, poverty, and race relations. He would talk to the young and walk among the youth to inspire with word or song, to gain their perspective on what is wrong, to uplift their spirits and make them strong. Nonviolence is his priority when questioning injustice authority. From his past, it was easy to speculate his view on love and his stance on hate. So listen to the pundits as they summarize how this world would look through the dreamer's eyes. Where there isn't just he wanted to stop this visionary who has seen the mountaintop. This leader who has seen the promised land would staunchly advocate a moral stand, would commend progress but not ignore the obligation to do much and more.
What would Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say if he were present and alive today? He'd smile to see we'd have a president of African American descent. But the prison industrial complex grew as a wellspring for local revenue, and we destabilized communities by shipping their industries overseas. Divisive feelings on integration, polarized factions on immigration, forgot the historical manuscript, enmity to the poor, and a new script, where faith does not compel us to embrace specific members of the human race. Face our neighbors with equality, reality, and not mythology.
How would human trafficking break his heart? As racial injustice tears us apart, bondage, child predators, and kidnapping, the violence in the neighborhood sapping our strength. More violence, more hatred leads to more casualties, and we exist in a reality without censorship or morality. What would Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say if he were present and alive today? He would note knowledge proliferation, yet many minds turn from education. While he would acknowledge improvements made, it would sadden him that we are afraid of each other at an alarming rate, while others are training their hearts to hate. He would weigh in on the ruckus debate, on flags and logos as symbols of hate, atrocities done in religion's name. People have abandoned conscience and shame. We live in a world where anything goes. Morality changes as the wind blows. But there is hope that the dream is still alive, and as long as there is hope, we will still strive. The marches for voter registration have been nullified through legislation. New barriers are put in place that they claim have nothing to do with race, but they are designed to restrict the vote. When he was in prison, the words he wrote to reach us and beseech us from within the jail to ensure that we as a nation would not fail.
What would Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say if he was present and alive today? Systemic problems will be called to bear, and through word and action, he would declare. Injustice, if it is found anywhere, is a threat to justice everywhere. Leadership with love will help us broker excellence over the mediocre. We have made progress in treating this disease, but I'm sure Dr. King would not be pleased. Of all the forms of inequality, he once stated without apology, Injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane, but forces are blocking. Character and not the color of skin from being a part of our discipline. And equal rights, we have made strides, but bias and injustice still reside. We should have traveled much farther along in fighting for rights and righting the wrongs. The notion that times are not as they were is shattered by a racial slur. Proximity to how it used to be should stop us short of claiming victory.
Just told you exactly what I would say.
Stop. Hands together. Everybody, let's give one more hand to our young people and the Oratorical contest winners.
Stay down. Stay down.
Very nicely done with their words of inspiration.
Oh, sorry.
On this day that we honor and celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Hey, everybody, I'm Terrell Brown from ABC7. Didn't get a chance to properly introduce. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. We're going to continue with the celebration of our young people. By the way, are you guys okay, everybody out there? I know after you eat, you're ready for a nap sometimes. I know I am. Just want to check in. Everybody good? Good morning. Let me hear you. We all right? All right. We're going to continue the celebration with our young people. This group, they have dazzled audiences all over this city, and they have represented Chicago so well all over the world. With the fusion of ballet and hip-hop, everybody, welcome to the stage. It is a true treat for all of us, the Hip-Lay Ballerinas.
Down, get your hands up.
Of funkin' hip-hop power. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only... Bring that beat back!
I thought they were going to go some more. I said, you guys going to do some more? They said, nah, we're done, out of breath, off the stage. The hip lay ballerinas. Everybody give them a hand one more time. It's always good to see them, always inspirational, always awesome, always make my feet hurt just a little bit when I watch them perform, but they are incredible to watch, and a lot of training goes into that. We are going to go on ahead and bring up Reverend Jackson. Kind of moving around the program here just a little bit.
Good morning. It's a delight to be home again today. A few people are going to introduce before I bring on our keynote speaker. A friend and brother who helped to found the program so many years ago, Judge Greg Mathis. Judge, stand, Greg Mathis. A woman who's empowering work has never done, Cheryl Grace from Nielsen. Cheryl, stand again, please. Outstanding State's Attorney Kim Fox. Kim, stand, please. Another hand for Mayor Lightfoot. Give her a big hand. County President Tony Pratt-Winkle is here for her. We'll make several observations today about today's meeting. One, we're honored George E. Johnson. Could not make it today because he had another injury yesterday. George Johnson Products Company had 300 people in our city. First company on the New York Stock Exchange. The original sponsor of Soul Train. We must never forget George Johnson. Big hand for George E. Johnson. You'll hear after I keynote speak a bit more today from the Pembroke Farmers Stand. Pembroke Farmers Stand from Pembroke. Give them a hand. Give them a hand. Pembroke is 70 miles south of here, capable of feeding every child in our school system, jail or county system. These are not gardens, these are farmers. They grow watermelon and corn and soybean and cattle. They in the hole because they do not have natural gas lines. They have propane gas. They cannot grow. We're going to bring Pembroke out of darkness. Another big hand for Pembroke farmers. Lastly, today as I prepare to bring on our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. King always remain relevant. One thing that hurts me so much, Judge, is to see people misappropriate Dr. King's for their own purposes. He was not passive, he was a militant. We were planning on his last birthday with Washington go to jail, shift the budget from war in Vietnam to war on poverty at home. Today our budget in the military is 10 times greater all budgets in the world combined. Too much killing, more weapons, and more insecurity. We must, 18,000 kids in Chicago school system in poverty, house to house, neighbor to neighbor. That's our challenge to change it. I want Rabbi Gordon to speak to us today because our keynote speaker, then we'll finish up with the Pembroke farmers and our honorees. Judge, you bring them on, Judge, when you finish it, and I want Dixon to sing for us and all that. Today, a dangerous thing is happening today. 50,000 national white supremacists are scheduled to march today on Richmond, Virginia. They march in Charlottesville, hurling, Jews go home and blacks go home. They've been emboldened and they're heavily armed and they're dangerous and they're violent. Blacks and Jews have a need, born of necessity, to come together and stay together. I was with Dr. King on his last birthday. What he did was, that morning he focused on how to end poverty. The afternoon, Al Lowenstein, how to end the war in Vietnam. Blacks and Jews have come together. We've done great things together. We formed NAACP together. Just as Constance Baker Motley was fit for the decision, so was Joe Rao. We come together, good things come. Today I want to honor the legacy and lineage of Black and Jewish Alliance. Rabbi Gordon, come forward. Give him a big hand. Thank you. Rabbi Gordon, give him a big hand. Come forward.
In the spirit of Viktor Frankl, who taught us Man in Search of Meaning, Reverend Martin Luther King's one of his last great events was with Rabbi Abraham Heschel, and in that spirit, a prophetic spirit of nonviolent social justice, I'd like to bring on Rabbi Gordon, but I'd like to also bring up one other thing. A gentleman introduced himself to me today. His name is Mr. Eugene Horton. Mr. Horton, where are you, sir? Eugene Horton. Can you please make your way towards the front? Eugene Horton. I'd like the rabbi to be up here as well. Mr. Horton, can you wave a hand or make a sound? Mr. Horton is around here somewhere. But what's significant about Mr. Horton, and I've got to bring back up our state's attorney, Ms. Kim Fox. Mr. Eugene Horton has served 48 years in jail in the state of Illinois. Mr. Horton has served 48 years, 4-8 almost, time and a half of what President Nelson Mandela has served. And he wanted to come and thank our state's attorney, Ms. Kim Fox, for putting pressure on the system because they had no evidence that kept him in jail. Now, if you've not seen the movie Just Mercy, there will be some sequels because the work that this woman is doing on behalf of all of us, that's a demonstration. And you can measure somebody, and the rabbi will teach us more, by do you have any enemies? If you've not made anyone upset, if you have no enemies, and heaven knows my father has many, that means you probably didn't stand for anything. Dad, I thank you for making a stand. Ms. Fox, I thank you for making a stand. Rabbi Gordon, I thank you for making a stand. We saw what happened with Laquan McDonald. We believe in voting. We believe in the system. We push forward for justice. But there was one person on the Supreme Court that had a dissenting opinion. He represented us, the Dr. Scott Neville, Reverend Dr. Reverend, our leading Supreme Court Justice. We thank God for you for standing up for Laquan McDonald when they've taken his voice. Our friend and yours, Rabbi Gordon.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Reverend Jackson. It's an enormous honor to be here speaking this morning. I want you to share with me something of a fantasy, an imagination. Imagine for a moment that Dr. King is still alive. It is not so impossible a thought. He would be 91 years old. Imagine that he is here with us and that the breakfast is over. He would leave this room and walk upstairs, walk out the front door of the Hyatt Regency, and he'd be on Wacker Drive. If he looked to the north, he would see the Apple Store and all of Michigan Avenue beyond that. If he looked to the west, he would see the new Riverwalk leading out to Wolf Point. Beautiful buildings of offices and residences all along the river. If he just walked down to the end of the block and stood at Michigan Avenue and Wacker at that corner, and if he looked south, he would see Millennium Park. And again, the splendor of Chicago leading out to McCormick Place. I imagine that Dr. King would not recognize this city. After having lived here and bringing his family to live here, he would see 50 plus years of change that have revitalized and transformed part of the Chicago he once knew. This is a very different city that has prospered, been transformed, and renewed. I would think that these changes would have been unimaginable to Dr. King. But here is the flip side, the dark side. If he were to return to the old neighborhoods in which he did his greatest work, the south side and the west side of this city, he would immediately recognize that Chicago. That Chicago has not been transformed. If anything, it is worse today than it was 55 years ago. But I don't think he would be surprised. He recognized the great entrenched disparities of American society. He spoke of skyscrapers among slums and jet planes roaring over ghettos. Dr. King called out the great dangers of economic disparity in his time, and we here know that those gaps and gulfs have become all the greater in these 50-plus years. In his Nobel Prize speech, he said, I quote, "The problem of poverty is seen in the great economic gaps within the rich nations themselves," unquote. And in this particularly rich nation, perhaps the richest, Dr. King would recognize a growing crisis, both of economics and morality. He continued to say, quote, "The time has come for an all-out war against poverty. The rich nations must use their vast resources of wealth to develop the underdeveloped, school the unschooled, and feed the unfed. Ultimately, a great nation is a compassionate nation," unquote. But compassion cannot be monetized, and so too much of our society ascribes no value to it. Dr. King had a radical and far-reaching criticism of America. He knew that American society had deep endemic problems that applied everywhere in this land. There are those who would like to present us with a sanitized and moderate version of Dr. King's work and philosophy. But as Reverend Jackson said, that is a great disservice to his passionate and critical analysis of our society. He came to Chicago to do battle against widespread school segregation. He took on the realtors and bankers who divided this city by race. He fought those in political power for equal rights and opportunities. And he embraced nonviolence as an activist committed to changing American society. He believed in a guaranteed middle-class income for all as a way to eradicate poverty in this wealthy nation. Dr. King was not a naive innocent. He understood the need to use power and influence. But he said, again quoting, "When I talk about power and the need for power, I'm talking in terms of the need for power to bring about the political and economic changes necessary to make the good life a reality. I do not think of political power as an end, neither do I think of economic power as an end. They are ingredients in the objective that we seek in life. And I think that objective is truly brotherly society, the creation of the beloved community," unquote. And most radical of all, he was ready to sacrifice himself for those greater goods. He said, I choose to identify with the underprivileged. I choose to identify with the poor. I choose to give my life for the hungry. I choose to give my life for those who have been left out of the sunlight of opportunity. I choose to live for and with those who find themselves seeing life as a long and desolate corridor with no exit sign. This is the way I'm going. If it means suffering a little bit, I'm going that way. If it means sacrifices, I'm going that way. If it means dying for them, I'm going that way because I heard a voice saying, do something for others, unquote. It is far too easy for us sitting here to celebrate some extraordinary accomplishments. Once again, look at this city itself. Chicago is prosperous with a new urbanization, corporate headquarters, and high-tech firms providing new jobs and opportunities within walking distance of where we sit here this morning. Politically, we have come a very long way indeed. We are honored that Mayor Lori Lightfoot is here, and she is the heir to Mayor Harold Washington. Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle is also present. State's Attorney Kim Foxx as well. This remarkable city produced Barack Obama. And all of those victories would have been beyond the imagination of Dr. King. But those accomplishments cannot lead us to complacency or passivity. Much has been achieved, but Dr. King's greatest concerns have not been met. We are living in a nation that is more divided than ever, and where the battles that we thought we had won are now being overturned on a daily basis. The hard-won victories of the civil rights era are under continual attack. Voting rights are threatened by the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, voter suppression, intimidation, and manipulation. Our public schools are being decimated by a Department of Education that undermines the values of universal equal education. The Department of Housing and Urban Development seeks to raise rent on 4 million low-income households that receive federal rental assistance. The Department of Agriculture has proposed toughening access to food stamps and free school meals. Nearly 3 million people would lose food stamps, and 1 million children would lose automatic eligibility for free or reduced price school meals. The story is told of a visit Dr. King made to a small rural elementary school in the Deep South. As he stepped into the classroom, he saw the teacher take a few apples and a handful of nuts out of a bag. She cut each apple into quarters and gave each child a slice of the fruit and a few nuts. Dr. King realized that at least for some of those children, this might be their only meal. He quickly left the classroom and went outside so the children would not see him crying. As I quoted him above, ultimately, a great nation is a compassionate nation. What happens to America when we lose our compassion? On April 4th, 1967, a year before his death, Dr. King delivered the most politically charged speech of his life at Riverside Church in Manhattan. The New York Times called it a blistering attack on the government's conduct of the Vietnam War. He condemned the military adventurism of his time, and now today we fear that bombastic posturing, impulsive, provocative acts of belligerence may bring us into a new, more dangerous set of conflicts. Racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, misogyny, xenophobia, hatred of LGBTQ people were not defeated in the years since Dr. King's assassination. The white supremacists or the inheritors of Gage Park, Marquette Park, and Cicero, as well as of Montgomery, Birmingham, Memphis, and elsewhere, are still with us. And when 9 African-American churchgoers were massacred at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, we had a president at that time who led this nation in the singing of Amazing Grace in order to heal our wounds. No such response followed the murderous Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. The Klan, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists have been given new permission to emerge from beneath their rocks by a selfless rhetoric of hate and disunity emanating from the top political office of our nation. So, in Dr. King's words, where do we go from here? The founding motto of Southern Christian Leadership Conference was to save the soul of America. And that is what Dr. King would ask us to do in his name. He would want us to organize, register, get out the vote. He would want us to fight the battles against those who would turn the clock back and overturn the moral victories and achievements that were won. You may wonder what a white rabbi from the suburbs is doing addressing all of you on this day, honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I wondered the same thing. But let me suggest that an answer of sorts. Each week, Jews read the lessons from the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. The Torah is read in a cycle, beginning with the book of Genesis, ending with the book of Deuteronomy. As it happens, we have just begun to read the book of Exodus, starting with the story of the enslavement in Egypt and liberation and freedom under the leadership of Moses. 36 times in the Torah we are taught, never forget that you were slaves in the land of Egypt. Always remember that you were strangers and outcasts in a strange land. And then the command is always followed by a therefore. But the Hebrew Bible never says, therefore hate the Egyptians. Rather, the therefore is that we are never to forget what it felt like to be slaves, outcasts, and strangers, so that we would know the plight of the slave, and thus always treat the stranger in our land as a native, defend the rights of the outcast, and fight for the rights of the oppressed. Those teachings drew Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, Aller Lowenstein, Rabbi Maurice Eisendrath, Rabbi Bob Marks of Chicago, and so many others to follow Dr. King and to march with him, arm in arm. Many shared jail cells with him in Birmingham, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, and elsewhere. A shared devotion to equality drew Michael Schwerner, Andrew Goodman, and James Chaney together in their martyrdom. Dr. King asked Rabbi Joachim Prinz to stand on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial with him at the March on Washington and speak from his experience as the rabbi of Berlin, the time of the rise of Nazism. Today, we must maintain that shared commitment to fight racism and anti-Semitism together. The coalition of blacks and Jews has not only been about Jews supporting blacks, but rather has been a source of mutual comfort and support. In October of 2018, 11 Jewish worshipers were slaughtered by a white supremacist at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. I grew up in Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh. Tree of Life was the congregation where my parents were married and was the spiritual home of my grandparents and much of my family. Following that horrific event, there was an interfaith worship gathering at my synagogue in Wilmette. Our congregation was joined by local clergy and members of the Christian, Muslim, and Baha'i communities. But most importantly, Reverend Jackson also joined us that night. Without fanfare, with humility, as a sign of his solidarity and friendship. That night, Reverend Jackson spoke movingly of our joint history, listing some of those same names I mentioned above. I will be forever grateful for his participation that evening and for his continued encouragement, inspiration, and friendship. Let us now imagine what Dr. King might find in a visit to Chicago 50 years from now. In these next 50 years, can we build a city in which all the neighborhoods share in the downtown's prosperity? Will economic opportunity be available to all its residents? Working together, we can share a vision of Chicago that is achievable if we but rededicate ourselves to carrying Dr. King's struggle on behalf of all who were denied their dignity as human beings equally created in the image of God. In February, Mayor Lightfoot will be hosting a summit on reducing poverty in the city of Chicago. This is a key priority of the Lightfoot administration. It is intended to shine a spotlight on the issue of poverty in Chicago and will launch a new coalition that hopes to inspire, activate, and work together to alleviate poverty in Chicago and ultimately serve as a model for our nation. So it is up to all of us, both individually and collectively, to continue this fight. We have much work to do to make real the visionary dream of Dr. King, but we cannot give up, even in the face of great opposition. Let us always remember that the challenges ahead of us are not nearly as powerful as the forces behind us. In this city and far beyond, we honor Dr. King by joining together to build a world of justice, equality, and peace. Let me conclude with these words of Dr. King. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Keep hope alive.
I want you to keep your seats, and we're going to do two things. We're going to honor our Excel recipients. Judge will present them. Please stay. Recognize the farmers from Pembroke and what we're going to do. They are the cup, we're the lip. We're going to deal with that. We should leave here. We meet once a year. On this occasion, let's honor it. Judge Mathis, come forward, please. And for the judge.
Thank you. Let me, as I always love to, once again proclaim and remind folks that I'm one of the initial and perhaps most grateful recipients of the service of Push Excel. It was in the early days of its formation when Reverend Jackson was doing his I Am Somebody tour, and he was going to the jails and schools throughout the country. And suffice it to say, I wasn't at the school when he came to speak. But it was through his efforts and inspiration that I left jail and did go to college, and under his tutelage became the youngest judge in Michigan history 15 years later. We thank God for the work of Reverend Jackson and Push Excel. And now I'm proud to be co-chair along with Pat Harris of the board. And let me ask if our other board members here would please stand. Board members for Push Excel, please stand. Give them a hand for all their work. I would like to mention their names, but I can't quite see with the light beaming in my face. This is my first time before the cameras. On that note, thank you all for supporting me for over 20 years. We're now the longest running television show hosted by an African-American male. Thank you all. Let me also thank in her absence Mayor Lightfoot, as she has left, for allowing me to join in the service of the restorative justice strategies, which involves youth and law enforcement. And I'm doing that under the leadership of one of our anchors of nearly 30 years on Fox, Robin Robinson. Please, Robinson, stand up. Robin has been leading that effort, and now I'm joining, and we thank Mayor Lightfoot for continuing that. And lastly, which should have been firstly, but you always wait for the last, and the best for the last, and that is our scholarship recipients. And as I bring them up, please join me on stage, those young folks who are recipients today. I want to inspire them, as Reverend Jackson inspired me, to not only be the recipient of social service, as scholarships, as tutoring, as mentoring is, but also be advocates for social justice. You need social change and social justice and social service for us to continue to fight for equality for our young people. So young folks, just don't come, receive a scholarship, go to college, get puffed up, make a couple of dollars, and forget about us. We need you to advocate for your community and fight for your community. And so with that in mind, I encourage you young folks to fight for the issues of today that affect you and others, eliminating student debt for our young people that go to college. And we know that education was illegal for a couple of 100 years for our ancestors. Well, now, in many ways, the education system is a crime itself. So you must fight to uplift yourselves and others, not with just anti-poverty programs, fighting for social services, but fighting for social justice, as Dr. King did for equality, and as Reverend Jackson has continued for more than 50 years. Let us now watch the video presentation of each of our awardees today. What you will see, the great awards being given out. Why are you going to turn the lights off while I'm reading the folks' name? They're going to say, turn it off. He can't read. We don't want him to mess up none of the name. I can read. Just because I said I've been to jail, y'all stereotyping me. And half y'all been to jail. And it ain't all for civil rights. This silver rice, or why you smelling like that on you? Why you smell like liquor? This ain't no march. All right, so resuming with the names of the honorees. We are most grateful to have the Consul General of South Africa, Sister Mazibuko, with the Push Excel Presidential Award. Then we'll have the Push Excel Visionary Service Award for Madrina Spence of the Metropolitan Family Services. The Push Excel Youth Mentoring Award, sponsored by Kelly Fair of Polished Pebbles. Then we have Push Excel STEM Award, the Dream Hustle Code Team, Ian Brock, Desiree Quazita, Karen Kale, Paige Prather, Aaron Chapman, Toy Slaughter III, Jaden Ikoff Brown, and Allegra and Alexandra Coleman. Thank you all, and please appreciate this greatness that you'll see in our young people.
Congratulations to Push Excel's Presidential Award recipient, Phumzile Mazibuko. Phumzile Mazibuko is the Consul General of South Africa in Chicago. Ms. Mazibuko is responsible for promoting trade and investments, enhancing people-to-people cooperation in the field of the arts, culture, education, and effectively rendering consular services to South Africans in 14 states in the Midwest region of the United States. Ms. Mazibuko is a career diplomat, having served abroad at the South African High Commission in New Delhi, India. She has also served as desk officer at the Greater China Desk within the Department of International Relations of South Africa. She's a graduate of the University of Johannesburg, formerly known as the Rand Afrikaans University, and holds a postgraduate diploma in both humanitarian and refugee law. She is currently studying towards her master's in diplomatic studies with the University of Pretoria. Miss Phumzile Mazibuku, congratulations for being Push Excel's 2020 Presidential Award recipient. Congratulations to Push Excel's Visionary Service Award. Adrena Spence is the Executive Director of Metropolitan Family Services Calumet Center, an agency servicing individuals and families on Chicago's far south side. Spence, a licensed social worker, has more than 20 years' experience in human services and is an active community leader. Professionally, Adrena is a living personification of Ken Blanchard's quote, "Leadership is not something you do to people, it's something you do with people." A visionary who leads by example, Adrena's civic and community involvement spans 2 decades. She actively works in the community with organizations including the Community of African American Mental Health Professionals, the National Association of Social Workers, the National Association of Black Social Workers, Jack and Jill of America Incorporated, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and the Links Incorporated. Thank you, Adrena Spence, for your continued work in the community, and congratulations as the 2020 Push Excel Visionary Service Award recipient.
We just want to tee up each video that you're about to see. So the next one that we're about to see, Push Excel Youth Mentoring Award, and that goes to Kelly Fair for Polished Pebbles.
Congratulations to Push Excel's Youth Mentoring Award recipient, Kelly Fair. Kelly Fair is the founder and executive director of Polished Pebbles Girls Mentoring Program, a passionate advocate program established in Chicago, Illinois, 10 years ago for girls and young women. She's a social entrepreneur, author, public speaker, training specialist, mentor, and expert on community engagement. Kelly has been featured in Ebony Magazine, The Wall Street Journal, MSNBC, the Chicago Sun-Times, and Chicago Woman Magazine. Her book, They're All the Same Girl, about her journey working with girls and building her highly regarded girls mentoring program, is available online at www.polishedpebbles.com. Kelly Fair. Whether you're mentoring young girls or inspiring others to do so, you well supersede what it means to push for excellence. Congratulations for receiving the 2020 Push Excel Youth Mentoring Award.
Everybody, big hand and congratulations to Kelly, everybody. And then the Push Excel STEM Award goes to Dream Hustle Code Team. Here we go.
Congratulations to Push Excel STEM Award recipient, Dream Hustle Code. Dream Hustle Code's youth are dynamic, socially conscious, and driven by the needs of technology in their world today. Co-founded by a 15-year-old Chicago native, Ian Michael Brock, Dream Hustle Code's mission is to inspire kids' confidence in computer science and empower them to see that they can be on the forefront of creating technology of the future and not just consuming it. Dream Hustle Code's vision is for all kids to have access and opportunity to computer science and coding education, especially in under-resourced communities, historically left out of the tech industry, African American communities, Latinos, and girls. The movement to make computer science truly for all, #CSF for all, is a civil right that we continue to fight for. Dream Hustle Code can be reached at www.dreamhustlecode.com. And Paige, Aaron, Cameron, Jaden, Alex, Allegra, Desi, and Toy, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., and the entire Push Excel family salute you for all the hard work you've done. And congratulations for being the Push Excel 2020 STEM Award recipients.
Everybody, another big hand for all of our honorees. So I know that we were supposed to hear from Roderick Dixon. He couldn't make it, by the way, a very talented Broadway performer. But I believe that we do have Kathy Townsend in the house. And I believe that she is going to sing for us here in just a second. Is she here?
I want to make two observations for you, please. Our building is under reconstruction. And so we're trying to get as many people as possible to put up $1,000 because we believe in what we're doing. You've seen Exhibit A this day. But B, on your table should be a book I recently finished, Speeches and Sermons Keep Up Alive. If you don't have it, they're available to you for free in the hallway. But we meet Saturday at the Parkway Ballroom. Meet us at 9:30 Saturday morning. We need mentors. We need guides. We need you to help us. Where's the tape for the farmers, Jeanette, for the Pembroke farmers? Didn't get ready, huh?
No, it'll be ready Saturday.
Saturday. Kathy Townsend?
She's ready.
A serious singer. Part of what we take pride in giving our people platforms to show their talents. I want us to bow our heads now in prayer. And she sings Everything Must Change. Kathy?
Oh yeah, speak to me. Ha. Whisper in my ear. Make it plain. Make it clear so that I can hear. Speak to me. 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 Speak to me.
Kathy Townsend, everybody. Beautiful, right? So if everybody would please, we have come to the end of the program. So if you would, cross your arms right over left as we prepare for the benediction. Everybody please stand.
Would you join hands at your table right over left? We're going to end in the civil rights tradition as Darius Brooks prepares to lead us in We Shall Overcome. Our Father and our God, we ask that you will bless us and keep us. Focus us on those things which will impact the least of these. Touch our hearts that we might become proximate to those in need, that we might remember those who are impoverished, that we might fight for those who are wrongfully convicted, that we might struggle for those who have no access to capital, have no access to affordable mortgages, no access to health care. Continue to strengthen our founder as he leads us as we fight for family farmers in Pembroke and small family farmers all across this nation as we become those markets for them to provide their goods and services. God, we ask that you bless us. And as we sing together, we shall overcome today. It's our time, it's our season. Let everyone say,
we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
All of the Pembroke farmers, come to the stage. Join Reverend Jackson. This is your day as we focus on transforming Pembroke. We are your market, Pembroke farmers. If you will join us wherever you are on this stage now. Sing together.
We shall overcome someday. Oh, we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank everyone for coming. We want everyone to make sure that you got your personal copy of Keeping Hope Alive, the book by Reverend Jesse Jackson of Sermons and Speeches. And we also want to remind you to join us on Thursday, February 13th. We are going to have a special invite with Shaq O'Neal for our NBA Hall of Famer here in Chicago. We have a special event here at Rainbow Push. Please, you should have gotten a palm card for that. We want everybody to make sure you got that. Benny Henry, I need to see you here at the tech table. Benny Henry. Ladies and gentlemen, please, we want to take this time to personally invite you to be our special guest at the Parkway Ballroom on 44th and King Drive every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. for our Saturday morning forum. We need your face in the place. Please come and join us on Saturday, every Saturday at the Parkway Ballroom right now while our building is being renovated, 44th and King Drive, 9:30 a.m. Please come and be our guest. Again, don't leave today without your personal copy of Keeping Hope Alive, Sermon and Speeches of Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. And we want you to be a part of our Hall of Fame series with Shaq O'Neal. You should have gotten a plugger about that. Thank you again.